Hello folks, Max from Woodsman's Finest here. You might as well know me as the author of the best-selling book 99 Reasons Why Fiberglass is Trad but Carbon Fiber is not. Well, today we're talking about a little bit of a pocket rocket that apparently I'm not really knowing what to do with yet, because I'm always needing a little bit of a feeler arrow before things come into fruition. But nonetheless, we're talking about a mixture of a pretty high-end limbs with a pretty low end, at least price-wise, riser. So stay tuned. Folks, thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode of my Grip to Tip series. You just saw it on the other 3D animal. The same kind of theme continues. Got a feeler arrow, and then we got that one that would be great if it was the first one, so to say. That's like what, 23, 24 meters, maybe like 27 yards ish. Not even 25, 26 yards ish. Just not a lot of archery in my recent life, not a lot of videos as well, but I'm trying to make amends for that. So without too much rambling, we're talking today and hopefully in a very nice and systematic manner about the Bosen archery horn riser, I guess it's called, and the RCX limbs by Bosen as well. Quick shout out to the sponsors. They're none, except for the one platform that I always like to really point out, because they're doing so much for people to enjoy traditional archery again. Once they might have run into target panic, they might have run into physical issues from using maybe a detrimental form or something. The Push Archery Center of Knowledge, there's a whole bunch of courses. No, they don't give me any money for that. They don't give me any affiliation. They don't give me anything for saying this. I just really like those guys. And ever since their video came out in 2016, full feature-length film and a couple of films afterwards that I absolutely adore in a way and watched many, many times in my life. The community they built, the podcasts have gotten me over so many long drives, cold long drives, north from Temagami, Northern Ontario, all the way down to Toronto when I needed to. So, shout out to the Push Archery. That's it for that. My affiliation to Bosen is that I have, as with many other brands, asked them in the past if they would send me some equipment, because I can't afford just buying new equipment just to do these videos, and they've agreed to do so. But I'm not in any way, shape or form suggested or obligated, I rather would say, to say anything positive, negative or whatever about these things. I'm just trying to give you an idea what you're getting for it, and this might be interesting for you. There's going to be a couple of gripes today as well. Anything else for setup? Not really. You know my bino harness, you know my knifey, the pup that's finally out, my hunting knife that I designed. Head to woodsmansfinest.com please to check that one out. Gotten really a couple of super nice YouTube reviews so far, which I'm really stoked about. Other than that, Eagle Flight quiver, about 8 inches of brace height, rather high brace, 652 Spectra string material as always, a couple of cat whiskers on it, Eagle Flight quiver just to finish that amazing quiver that really dampens my setups and is super light. I like that quiver more than anything else. 340 spine, 30 inches long arrows with about 250 up front. Elite vanes, the cheapest plastic vanes pretty much you can buy from AAE, and a couple lighted nocks. Other than that, top head setup. That's it. Let's get to it. Just in case you didn't know, I'm making pretty sick tabs from Cordovan leather, Italian horse leather with super nice backing, various types actually. Some Wicked and Craig harness leather, and you can get them with or without hand stitching, and actually they're not glued, so you can separate them and put more or less backing leathers in or exchange the Cordovan. Just saying. woodsmansfinest.com, the link's down in the description box. what we're looking at here in terms of the riser, 17-inch length, ILF riser, aluminum material, from the grip out. The grip itself is kind of a proprietary design that also came, I think, with a second one that's a little bit steeper. At least that was on the horn, on the Reaper. These actually didn't come with the second grip, sorry. The Reaper did, which is 19-inch riser. I might actually talk about that in the future as well. Not sure if I like it yet or not, which is not necessarily reasoning for the videos anyways, but I'm digressing. Proprietary grip, kind of a low-medium design, something that you could definitely file or whatever to get it the way that you want it. I like them quite a lot. They're okay. They got a little bit of a lifeline happening, so absolutely feasible for me. This little ledge, this little corner here, there's a couple of brands that have already realized that we're putting our hands in kind of a 45-degree fashion onto our handles. And if there's too much of a sharp corner sticking out here, if you will, that's actually not necessarily really comfortable for your hand. On this one, it's not too bad, so it doesn't bother me. But for example, the VPA, what is it called? The Vaporizer, I think it was called, the 13-inch one. That one had a lot less material around here, people knowing that we're kind of gripping them in this 45-degree manner. Anyways, not too bad. So before we come into the rest, just like a quick moment about the color scheme. I asked them a few years ago maybe to do something else in black and maybe doing something else in their a little bit more flamboyant design, whatever, when it comes to all the parts. And they at least did like a matte, I would call this like a, it's not quite an OD green, it's also not quite an FDE, flat dark earth, somewhere in between, and I actually dig it. It's very similar to the WF21 that I did in a couple videos ago, and I do actually like it a lot. The riser also comes in black, you know, so between the hunters and the people who don't like the military look too much, you pretty much got all the people covered. Coming out to the rest, this is one of my two major gripes about this riser that I want to be really honest about. There is no burger holes. It's basically this idea, there is two aluminum humps in here that you're going to see in the close-ups, and the riser itself just comes with two pieces of fur, leather, whatever attached to these, which is I guess fine if you're shooting like split finger or 3 under touching the nock. How can I say it? This is an aluminum riser, ILF setup. People are gonna do a lot of experimenting with it. There's gonna be maybe not people doing crawls very far, but there's gonna be fixed crawl people. And the split finger shooting off a setup like this is gonna get you a point on that's about 95 yards away. So there's a lot of 3 under people and then tuning on a lot. At the end of the day, it doesn't ever hurt when you already got the very modern trad setup, what I call this, to put just 2 burger holes in there. And I talked to them about this and the second gripe that I'm having, and they basically said, well, it's kind of a price point thing. And I'm kind of calling bull crap on that, because it doesn't cost you more than a couple cents in China, I guess, to put 2 holes in here and tap them. You know, you don't even have to put any steel inserts or anything, because there's not going to be any torque on these threads. So anyways, they didn't do it. I asked them to please do it in the future, because if you're bringing out a modern hunting 17-inch kind of modern trad riser ILF setup thing, you can't put them out without at least 1 hole. You don't have to do the second one maybe for a plunge and a rest. Just do the rear one at least, so we're having over the middle, or like over the pressure point of the grip, we have that 1 hole where we can put our nap center rests, our springy rests, our whatever rest, right? What I did to get around that issue is I just glued on a what I called a bare weather rest kind of thing, and it works. You know, you can go ahead, take your bare weather rest, kind of like cut it out or cut around that specific shape there, just glue it on and you're good to go. It's probably a very quick to fix thing as well. If you're in the field and one happens to pop off, have a couple more in your bag, in your alpha pack or whatever, and you just pop it on. Okay, there you go. Then funny enough, they got 2 holes there for quivers, or for a sight, which is something that I think arguably least people are actually doing. like a screw-on type of bow quiver. There are people who do that, but in general that's not really common, right? Now getting out to the hardware, it's pretty nice hardware for the tiller bolts. It's kind of a counter screw kind of locking setup that works pretty well, which I'm glad about because I'm putting some pretty high performance limbs on here. And this type of whatever design here, if you like it or not, it's not too extreme. It's a little bit more extreme on the Reaper, which I don't like too much, but on here it doesn't really disturb too much. Last part about the riser, the last couple parts, I want to say something good as well about it. It's got quite a lot of deflex, but it's got pretty neutral limb pad angles. I don't quite remember getting confused and mixed up with another riser that I measured recently. Yeah, so we're pretty much at 1.5 inches, which is really nice. Maybe 1.25 inches. That's quite a lot of deflex in a short riser like that. I liked it a lot, especially combined with the neutral limb pad angles. My second major gripe about this riser, which I didn't have problems with so far, but could have, is there is no lateral limb adjustment for the limb pockets. So the limb pockets itself is basically, they're just kind of machined into the aluminum. As far as I remember, there is not extra insert, which usually there's at least a brass or a steel insert on these aluminum risers. Now we're talking like a detent system that's out of steel in high performance limbs, working in and out of just bare aluminum limb pockets, first of all. Second of all, there is no lateral limb adjustments. So far I've been pretty lucky. These Bosen limbs that I've had in here, not only these but also the RCS and also the longbow limbs, and also limbs of other manufacturers like Boder and actually MK, they all were so straight that I had no issues with limb lateral adjustments that I would have to make. However, that could happen to you, and a limb is not garbage just because it needs a tiny little bit of adjustment. So I see how this is maybe a little bit more extra cost because there's a lot of hardware that needs to go into that and extra machining, and it needs to be very precise, which is maybe not as much of an issue with the burger hole. However, just be aware that on these risers, also considering of course the price point that is under $200, there is these two things missing, and I think, or I hope, because of my feedback, they at least gonna add the burger hole to the next iteration of these, and hopefully also the limb adjustments, because other than that, I do think that these risers are pretty sexy, that they're very useful, they're quite light. And one thing I forgot that they actually did add is a stabilizer hole on the front, so I can run one of these little dampeners, which is like, if you're talking priorities, I'd rather not have this and rather not have the drilling for the quiver or sight, but get my burger holes and my lateral limb adjustments. And I think most of you probably would agree. Let's book it. Alright guys, let's talk limbs. These are static recurve limbs. RCX, these are longs. Makes a 262-inch bow. I got a lot of hate already in the first video where I'm just comparing a couple of speeds. First video in the series, if you will, from the classic Border Archery of Scotland fanboys. There's this thing, I'm a craftsman myself, and I do not like it when people steal my ideas, which has happened to me before, more than once. However, there is this idea that everything that has to do with a limb design, recurve limb, whatever it is, that is not 100% conventional, has come originally exclusively out of Border of Scotland, blah blah blah. I'm not even taking any part in that discussion. I find it extremely tiring. I do like the questions of what's the facts behind it, the question why. Someone would point that out. There's got to be like specific reasons. Anyways, this is not a super curve in the actual sense of what the word means. The super curves are working recurves of sometimes absolutely ridiculous amount, if you will. This is a static recurve, and it comes with its positives, advantages, and benefits, and it comes with a couple of, I wouldn't call it negatives, but there's something that you need to know when you're getting into these. I'm almost sounding like I'm trying to talk about dogs and puppies, and yeah, you need to know what you're getting into. So I have a 27-inch draw. Super curves and static recurves do fold over, very similar to the Sias in traditional composite bows, as you would know them from some First Nations and Native American tribes of the Americas, and a lot of Asiatic bows, starting with Koreans all the way over to Persians, Osman bows. They all do have that sense of a let off, which is not precise because there is actually not a reduction in draw weight. There's just a reduction of additional draw weight being put on with every inch that you're drawing. So usually there's quite a significant wall and a kind of a spike, or like a steeper curve in the beginning of the draw, force curve. And then as the limbs start working and or folding over, camming over, if you will, there is a reduction in draw weight that is added with every inch of draw, as I just said. That is only true though if your tiller is on, and if you, and I hope that I don't get this wrong, but that's my feeling after putting 2 lengths of these onto 3 or 4 different risers. If you have a draw length that fits the draw curve of the specific limb. In other words, you need to hit the sweet spot of the limb in order to hit the sweet spot of this type of camming over type of feel. Now, when I talk about these limbs in the medium configuration on a WF19, we're gonna get back to this topic. Or maybe I've done this video already before, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to be posting them, in what order. However, I'm referring to that other video when it comes to a longer riser with a shorter limb. In this case, we have a shorter riser with a longer limb. In my opinion, if you have a draw length that is above 27, mine's 27, 28, 29, 30, you're going to get the benefit of a shorter riser with a longer limb of these RCXs. I am just shy of that specific sweet spot, if you will. So I'm not quite getting there, or I do kind of get there, but I definitely feel if I'm drawing a 1/4 of an inch shorter or longer, I feel I'm not hitting it, or I hit it. So I'm not quite at the sweet spot. I'm, so to say, at the one spectrum side of that window of tune, if you want to use Cody Greenwood's expression. Other than that, I find these limbs very interesting. They are quite forgiving. I've used some other super curves, and I didn't like them at all. These are quite forgiving. They put quite a lot of force, of course, on the limb bolts and the setup and everything. So really make sure to tighten everything down so you're not having any surprises. I do not want to string walk them. I said that in the WF21 video. I don't want to string walk these, so I put the RCSs on the other riser and the RCXs on here because I'm shooting them with a fixed crawl, and I can tune them right to my fixed crawl. I just did a little bit of a softer limb on the bottom, a little bit further out on the tiller bolt, gives me a weaker limb on the bottom, so crawling down quite significantly actually on this, and I tell you why in a moment, is not putting me out of tiller too much. Build quality wise, symmetry wise, and also straightness wise, these are spot on straight. Not only these, but also the other pair I have. So I didn't need any limb adjustment lateral on this riser, which was a gripe of mine, but despite them being these kind of teched out, tuned to the max type of limbs, I didn't need any adjustment, which was amazing. They are quite light. They have very no frills design, but when it comes to the craftsmanship, everything is completely symmetric, everything's straight. There's nothing to complain about in these. There are obviously foam and a T T800, T1000 carbon, I don't even remember. And they're very minimalist when it comes to design, which is kind of nice. Obviously, it's a little bit kitschy. Do I need the bear or whatever, wolf, lion or whatever is on there? No. Do I see it a lot, like very well in this type of design? No. So you can easily put a couple of, you can put like, I don't know, you can keep them this way for hunting. You can put a little camo on, whatever you want. There's obviously like no design that's getting in the way. The matte finish, like something like that. Performance is amazing. You saw that in the speed testing video. I refer some freaking card there, somewhere up above me there. They are very, very high efficiency limb. Now that comes with two things you need to know as well. When you're running a fixed crawl, I'm running a pretty heavy arrow here. There's like lighted nocks, like I said, 250 up front, 340s, stiff short arrows, heavy arrows, around 600, and I'm still running a 2-inch fixed crawl. And I'm still not a point on a 20. I still need to gap a little bit. Second of all, getting over that initial hump with the shoulder issues that I have, not necessarily from archery, but from a lifelong of American football, grappling, heavy lifting, mixed martial arts, all this kind of stuff that you shouldn't do. I should have gotten me these limbs 5 pounds lighter. Now these are 50 on a 19-inch riser. So they're 52 at this, minus a couple of pounds for my shoulder draw. Maybe 50, 51 pounds actual draw weight at my draw length. However, this initial hump that you need to get over is a little bit tough for me if I'm shooting all day, especially now that I haven't shot as much in the last few months. It's not necessarily, so me getting these, so I ordered them, let's say like this, I ordered them specifically 50 on a 19-inch riser. So they're 50, 60 at 64 inches, which is long limbs with a 19-inch riser. String length, everything fits really well, just to get that out of the way. Now it defeats the purpose of a high-performance static recurve type of limb like this if you then also get the limb in the weight as you have all of the other limbs. So that was a total mistake on my side. I should have understood that these are high-performance limbs that kind of get you something extra with this static recurve. And I also understood that there's going to be a little bit of a bump in the beginning, a little bit of a steeper draw force curve in the beginning. And I should have totally just gone with 45, 43 pounds on a 19-inch riser, 45 pounds at my draw on a 17-inch riser. It would have been totally enough. So now I wouldn't have to crawl as much. I wouldn't have, you know, to get over this like heavier draw in the beginning. And yeah, that's just something I wanted to say. Conclusio. Quiet, smooth draw nonetheless. A lot of deflex in this riser that makes it easy for me, as you've seen as well in the footage. The bow's jumping straight forward. It's nice and stable. It could have a little bit more weight, like added to here, and it would stand up straighter than it does, but the little bit of tilt doesn't do anything to me really. It's not a negative. Price points, I don't quite remember, to be honest. I think these limbs are somewhere around 450, 500 bucks or something. The riser is under 200, maybe 150, something like that. In conclusion, I think that I would always save on the riser and get me the better limbs, because that's ultimately what you're feeling. As long as the riser has all of the specific characteristics that you personally like. In my opinion, that's lots of deflex, nice material, good hardware, because that's a safety kind of concern. And then really get the limbs that you know you're going to be able to work with. Like I said in the other videos, get yourself rather like 2 risers and 1 pair of limbs, right? Because 2 riser lengths that are far apart can get you 1 bare bow 3D setup riser with the same limbs, and a shorter riser that's going to bump the draw weight up, making it all of a sudden a hunting riser. And especially in limbs like this, that is of course a possibility. And I think I pretty much covered it all when it comes to this setup. Covered all the goods, the bads, and the uglies. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I'm trying to keep the rambling down, but at the same time, I don't want to cut it short just because some people don't want to sit through a video where I'm going really into the depth when it comes to these type of matters. If you want to have a video where someone's just basically raving about a setup, saying like, oh, it's a fact, I'm telling you, it's the truth, this is amazing, like the bow is amazing, it's accurate, you know, then that's the video for you. It's definitely not for me, because there's zero information and I still wasted 10 minutes of my life. A bow is never going to be accurate, but it might help you being more accurate by having forgiving features. And this is the type of information, the type of in-depth reflection on a matter that I personally enjoy watching and listening to, and this is why I'm trying to get that to you. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for tuning in. Check out the stuff in the description box, because there's some things that help me out a lot. woodsmansfinest.com, for example, where you can get the hunting knife that I designed, and of course the stuff that I do hand make and craft. And with that, I'm wishing you a beautiful fall day, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Cheers.